So most of my life, I think that I've pretty much felt like I was avoiding the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, pretending like the world was better than it really is, naively believing in the obscene notion that people are generally good, and it's not at all the case. And it's taken me a long time to see just how unbelievably and uncontrollably wicked that our fellow man is. And of course, that potential lives in all of us. So every single one of us could be just as evil, just as wicked, just as horrible as the most horrible people that we see or hear about. But the crazy thing is that we don't want to believe that the world is just as freaking nuts and crazy and wicked as it really is. And surprisingly, even when I was in Chicago, somehow I had blinders on and still didn't see just how evil it was, even walking around in the middle of it. Let me give you an example. We would go into the project areas, into Cabrini Green and the Robert Taylor homes in college, and we'd invite people to church, lots of them, and we would go into these 17-story high-rises. It's interesting because in gematria, kill equals 17s, and they were all 17 stories. I didn't know that at the time, of course. I've just learned gematria here recently, but the number of floors has always stuck out to me, And I'm not exaggerating at all when I say that every single inch of every single brick in every single building, all 17 floors for miles of these buildings, especially Cabrini Green, it was awful, or just covered in graffiti. There would be feces and urine in the elevators and on the steps. I knocked on one door and it was open just a little, and when the force of my knock would open the door just a little, and there was a guy snorting crack, and he's like, "Shut the door," and another door that I came to, the kid opened the door, and right behind these little kids that came to the door were two people having at it, fully nude, and this is the environment that people grew up in. And somehow it still didn't dawn on me just how terrible it was. I don't know why. I don't know why I had the blinders on to think the world was a little better. But the complete depravity of man still surprises me to this day. How many people are guilty of murder in this country? And that's a piece of all of us, that we all have that sinful nature where we could all be a part of that. And so it's up to us now to raise the Christ consciousness, to think with the mind of Christ, to bring humanity up to the next step, and including ourselves. We always have to start at home on first base first and bring ourselves up first. But I just wanted to give a little introduction and some thoughts here, because we're going to talk about just how unbelievably wicked people are. But I want to see if you can follow these clues first. Why do you think you're seeing Walmart shootings? And right before that, well, how many Walmart shootings have there been now? At least, I'm aware of at least 3. I think there might have been 4 or 5 now. And right before that, you were seeing people peeing, supposedly in the news, at Walmart stores. Why would they be peeing at this? Oh, hey, Earl, you made it at the beginning of the video instead of the end, buddy. You got it this time. Earl always somehow always just seems to show up right at the last second somehow. Got me in at the beginning this time. That's cool. So why are we seeing all this? What's up, bro? Earl's over here in Germany, doing a good job exposing gematria and exposing the elites and the programming and stuff that's going on over there. Well, so why are we seeing Walmart in the news and people peeing in 2 different places right before a bunch of Walmart killings? Well, of course, Walmart is, Zach says they're supplemented by the government. I I can't prove that, so I'll just tell you that that's what he said. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't know. It would make sense that that's how their prices are so much lower than most places, but I'm finding anymore their prices aren't that much lower. So I'm not sure it used to be, but it doesn't seem to be the case much anymore. I try to avoid Walmart as much as I can, but sometimes that's where you got to get things. So, but let's go back to the Irish. Let's see, the potatoes. Why did some person pee on potatoes at Walmart? This was on July 30th this year. And you got to think, what's the deal about potatoes? Did this really happen? And they may have, but people are being manipulated in some way, paid to do this in some way. But here's the clue. When you think of potatoes, you think of Ireland, right? You think of the potato famine and that sort of thing. This is a clue. This is intentional for you to pick up on what was going on. Well, what was the next big thing in the news that came out? Well, a few days later, you had Saoirse Kennedy Hill, the granddaughter of Robert Kennedy, murdered at her own house. And of course, Saoirse Kennedy was Irish, like Irish potatoes. So you see a Walmart potato, they're peeing on it, like a complete degradation of something. And then a few days later, an Irish well-known person, the fifth Kennedy to date, was murdered at her own home. Now, what sort of sophistication, what kind of people are we dealing with when we're thinking that people can go into the Kennedy compound and still kill Kennedys right there where they live? And this is why I say that I have had blinders on my whole life. I couldn't understand just how dark and wicked that this world really is. Because this took Hugh Squires to explain this stuff to me, because he has lived through this life that he's had of constantly being surrounded by celebrity murders, and even the murders of his own wives and fiancés, 4 to date, and constantly having the same groups of pedophiles killing people around him, because he knows the true story of our nation and what this is really about. And it's so much darker and so much deeper than anything that I could have ever imagined. And so it's no wonder that I've had blinders on, and I'm sure pretty much all of us here have blinders on, because there's no way we could have seen and understood this reality. Because when I talk to Hugh, and I talk to him good number of hours just about every night that I'm at one of the homes that I work at, he'll call me up, and the story of Hugh is so deep, so big. He literally had Buzz Aldrin, as a friend on Facebook for a long time, and he grew up with him, knew Buzz, called him Buzzy, knows that he's a closet homosexual, for instance, things you wouldn't normally know, and it doesn't get exposed in the media. I mean, things like that. He grew up in the music industry as a publisher and going around picking up money from all these different bars and different places where a lot of these performers would perform, and it was nothing for him in the 60s and 70s to go pick up $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a night in cash. Okay. So he really got to see and experience, especially in the Detroit area, the immense number of murders and the connections, and he knows these connections very, very well. And he can tell you their families. I'm hearing dingings, but I'm not seeing any words show up, so I don't know why. Let me type a word and see if something shows up, or just a letter here. I don't know if people are commenting. No, I don't know. So if anybody's saying anything, I don't know why it's not showing up, but it's dinging as if somebody is trying to comment. So of course I do this on Facebook because I like people to comment. So feel free to, if you have a question or a comment, feel free. You're not interrupting me. That's why I do that on Facebook. I like participation. I have a hard time getting this message to people personally. So I feel like the best way to do that is to come online, and I don't know if people feel safer or something talking to you, but whatever it is, they tend to listen to you more. So we had the peeing at the Walmart on the potatoes, which makes you think of Ireland, Irish potatoes, that sort of thing. And then we had just a few days later the death of Irishman, if you will, Irish descent, Saoirse Kennedy, the fifth in the line of Kennedy assassinations. And what kind of a world do we have where they can actually get into homes and kill people now? Well, Hugh had to explain this to me, and because he knows how this system works. Well, the way that it works is there's still deep forces that are at war against the foundation of this country, and the Kennedys represent that side of our country. Kennedy was murdered because he was about to expose those that ended up taking his life, like the Bushes, and the Bushes are in league with the Queen of England, and he knows this full well. He understands exactly all the connections and how it works. Remember that. This is why you got to get to know Hugh Squire's story really well, and it is hard to understand because it's almost impossible to see how he could have so many connections, but they're all true. And the more you look at him, the more you understand that he's telling the truth. Like over and over and over again, when I check into him, I find truth in what he says. But don't use Wikipedia to confirm it, because more than once he's got pictures like of his first wife, okay, had been formerly married before she was married to him to the last remaining Civil War vet. Well, if you Wikipedia the last remaining Civil War vet, it doesn't say this guy's name. But this woman had been 18 when she married this like 80-some-year-old Civil War vet, like back in the 30s or something. It's unbelievable. And then she married Hugh like when she was in her 50s or something. It's just a weird story, okay? Very strange. And that guy gave him a battlefield, a house on a battlefield in Tennessee. This guy's story is just so amazing, okay? But you won't find that. So you're not going to find his story. And I have said before I even knew Hugh or gematria, I'd said that Wikipedia, the purpose of it is to be a CIA front where they can change facts and information and history to confuse and manipulate people. Because the first thing we all do is we Google it and we take the Wikipedia article as some sort of gospel truth, and most of it is manipulated, just like the media stories and just like television shows. And like Hugh says, every single story in the news is fake. Not some of them, not most of them. They're all fake. They're all propaganda. And that doesn't mean what they said didn't happen precisely. It means that it is being used in some way as a propaganda tool. So yes, when people get shot at Walmarts, yes, they're really getting shot. There are a few instances where we don't think people are getting shot. If I say what those are, I'd probably get a strike or something, and so I have to be careful not to say that. But if you can connect dots and listen carefully, you probably know what those are. Certain races and stuff like that seem to be very fake events where people didn't literally die, but most of the time they do. Most of the time people are literally hurt. And so I forgot where I was going with that. Anyway, so we had the peeing of the potatoes, and we had a few days later the death of the Irish potatoes, Saoirse Kennedy on 8/2. Then on 7/27, we had peeing on a wine shelf. And this is what the article said. This is also at a Walmart. And they said somebody peed. This is in Porter, Texas, 7/27. So I guess this was before the first one, so I wrote them out of order. The person peed on the wine shelf, and it says that it pulled around the bottles of wine. Well, if you've ever been to church, you know what wine represents. It represents blood. That's why you drink the wine with the bread. It represents the blood of Christ and the body of Christ. So wine is a picture of blood. And when they specifically said in the news media, the news, which is controlled by your federal government, by the CIA, all of it is, even your beloved Fox News, then you were seeing a picture of blood pooling around by the wine. Okay, that's not a coincidence or an accident. They said it in these stories on purpose. This was propaganda. Whether the person literally peed at the Walmart or not, it makes no difference. The story is the same. So they peed on the wine shelf. It pooled around the wine bottles specifically to tell you that there was going to be blood spilled. This was metaphor. This was a clue for you to understand what was about to happen. And what happened the very next day, and think about where wine is made. And mostly in our country, wine is made in California. And the next day, we had the Gilroy Garlic Festival massacre. And then just to show you, if you want to see the numbers, look how obvious it is. Urinate, 88, 101, and 47. Walmart, 88, 101, and 47. You see how these were obviously meant to put together. Now, Saoirse Kennedy, do you see how they're only two different? Okay, they don't have to be exactly the same. They're matching patterns to show you that they go together. Okay, this is why they constructed a urinate at Walmart story around the name Saoirse Kennedy, because Saoirse came first, right? So they had to choose something something that would go with that as close as they could. So they put together urinating at a Walmart. You see how obvious it is? 86 is 2 less than 83, 103 is 2 more than 101, 49 is 2 more than 47. You know, and then also the Gilroy Garlic Festival. Gilroy is 86. You know, these are meant to go together. It's pretty obvious, really, from the numbers that they're meant to go together. But if you had no numbers and you can just pay attention to the metaphors, it should just be common sense as well. And it looks like there's a glare or something. I'll try to move this just a little bit. But and you might notice that Saoirse Kennedy Hill, their mother's from the Moore family, and Moore is 66, like Irish potato is 66. So think about that. So you had Irish potatoes and the Kennedys, who are Irish, murdered the fifth one, and then you had peeing on a wine shelf, and the next day you get the Garlic Festival massacre. It's not hard to see that these are planned events and that somebody that has a lot of money had to pay and manipulate for all this stuff to go together for this to work. Well, who has that kind of money? If these were actually random shootings, we got eyewitnesses that say that at the Walmart shootings that there were they saw 3 or 4 gunmen, some people say. And then if you watched one of my last couple videos, I showed how it looks like the video footage of the single shooter is probably cropped in and manipulated, that it intentionally doesn't show his face, and that the markings in the on the pavement in the background appear to have they were not there was no stop sign in the real Walmart, that we never saw stop, not stop sign, but stop written on the pavement like we saw in the footage of the shooter. Go back and see that video on my bow and arrow YouTube, and it's pretty obvious that it was manipulated and some fishy going on there with the footage. And then you have other eyewitnesses, just like at the Parkland, Florida shooting, where you get one person arrested, but the witnesses come in and say, oh no, we saw 3 or 4 people in the same kind of gear that they saw at Walmart in El Paso, and with bulletproof vests and gear on and everything, shooting people. So it's the same, just like Parkland, where they had several people, shooters, according to the witnesses and the survivors, and yet only one person was arrested, who was clearly some kind of manipulated individual who was either MK Ultra or manipulated, beat, multiple personalities. In some sort of way, they were abused and put into these situations, or perhaps lied to or paid off, or we don't know exactly why or how they got to be the scapegoats. But and they probably were a part of the shooting, but they were not the central focus of it. They were the ones who were set to take the blame. It's I think, to me, in my mind, it is pretty obvious that your government is doing this. They're the only ones with this kind of power, this kind of money, this kind of manipulation. When I say the government, let's explain what the government is for a second. And this is why I was so naive. Even as much as I've seen in my life, I was still naive until Hugh really has opened up my understanding of just how violent and wicked this world is. What is your government? Well, think about the person who runs the FBI Sex Crimes Division. His name is Osborne. Excuse me. Sorry. Well, Osborne, he's either the son or grandson, one of the Osborne who took Hugh hostage back in 1957 as a 4-year-old boy and tied him to a toilet. And I don't even want to describe to you in mixed company all the terrible things they did to him, but he has described it to me, and it's very awful. Okay? This is the same family that's running the FBI Sex Crimes Division today. And they're the ones responsible for the Oakland County, Michigan murders and the child abductions that happened in the 60s, where a great number of children disappeared up there. And even Hugh's own twin brother was murdered by the same people that took him and dumped in the field over in Pennsylvania, the same field where Flight 93 happened. Supposedly crashed there. And this is no accident, because 9/11 was primarily done to cover up the theft of what they did to Hugh as a publisher. Because Hugh was an international publisher with, I think he said, 60-some thousand contracts worth hundreds of billions of dollars. That doesn't mean that he got hundreds of billions of dollars. It means his contracts were worth that much. So that's why you can actually listen to George Bush say Hugh's structures came crashing down. And that was a slip of the tongue, because then he caught himself and said huge structures came crashing down on 9/11. That is not an accident. This is what really goes on in your country. This is the same. All that happened, the Kennedy assassination is connected to the 9/11 assassination, and it's connected to these shootings here recently in Walmart. It's all going together. It's interesting that in Dayton, the shooting was at the Oregon district or something that says it's close to the Oregon district. Well, I didn't know there was an Oregon district in Dayton. I mean, who knows that? Well, but that was manipulated to be put on TV all the time, and it wasn't actually in it, but they associated it with it on purpose in the news. Well, why did they do that? Well, because the same group that did 9/11, that has murdered untold numbers of thousands of children in this country and tortured them and raped them, well, Hugh is from Oregon, and Hugh is against them. Okay, Hugh is he's at the center of their theft and of what they did. So he is exposing the truth of 9/11 and of the Kennedy assassination, and he's like the only person left, that's doing this. And this is why it's so important that some of you really look hard into what I'm saying, because this could create a movement in our country. There's not very many people that know this information. He kept it to himself until they killed his wives, and he said, okay, I'm done. His former wives, okay? One of them was his wife at the time. So then he said, enough is enough. I'm exposing everything. So it's time to really look into this and understand what really happened in your country, because this information was almost lost had he not come out and decided to expose it. At the same time, it's dangerous information, so it has to reach critical mass. It has to go to where they can't just exterminate a few people and get this information removed. You have to take this information and you need to spread it as fast and as logically and as well as you can. Screenshot his videos, which all you can do if you have Windows 10, if you hit the Windows button and the letter G, your screenshot will come up. Then just hit the little record button that comes up while you're playing your video, and you can record it. Just pay attention to which file that you save it in so you can find it later. Okay, if you're new to computers, if you're experienced, you already know that. But I know there's always somebody new that doesn't know how. So just hit the Windows and G if you have Windows 10, and that'll bring up your screen record. Watch Hugh Squire's videos and get this information and understand it. It's just what happened to our country. This is why Kennedy was assassinated. And it was the same group, the same father, O'Donnell, that Hugh confessed to in the Catholic Church, who framed and Lee Harvey Oswald for the murder of Kennedy. Lee Harvey Oswald had nothing to do with the murder of Kennedy. But it was Father O'Donnell from Michigan, okay, from that same area there in Michigan, in New Haven and Oakland County area, that was in Texas, okay, just like George Herbert Walker Bush was there also, even though he says he doesn't, even though there's pictures of him being there, and he says he doesn't remember where he was that day. Wonder why I said that. Well, it was that same priest, Father O'Donnell, who that Hugh confessed to in Michigan, that framed Lee Harvey Oswald, that testified against him and said that he was the one that killed Kennedy. Think about that for a second. It was the same group. Well, Hugh grew up in Detroit, in a rich area, back when Detroit was a rich city, the richest city on earth, okay? I know it's a crap hole now of unbelievable proportions, but once upon a time, it's where the celebrities were. That's where, up until I think 61, I think 61 is the first time they had a Democrat a mayor, I think. I don't think that's a coincidence either. They just started getting worse and worse and worse. And it's not just the mayor's fault. There's a whole lot of other things that have to do with why Detroit's a crap hole now. But this organized crime and mafia and all the celebrities all lived up there fairly close together, as did all these former governor's children that were responsible for the pedophilia gang, including Osborne, who now runs the sex crimes division of the FBI. Okay. Now you say, how did Greg Bowe in Nowheresville, Ohio, learn this information? Why is it that he knows this? Well, let me tell you, because there's not very many people who will take the time to listen. He was the kind of person who has so much information that he talks very fast, and if you don't listen and write things down, you're not going to understand what he says. And if you don't listen over and over again and put the pieces together and try to understand that there's a person, that nobody can make up this many lies and keep it all straight. And when you look up the connections to their families, that you figure out how they're all related, and you're like, oh my gosh. And an unbelievable number of people, he says, lived in Detroit, and then you look them up and they're like, oh yeah, they actually are from Detroit. What do you know? And so on. And it goes on and on. And then you see pictures of him playing the guitar that belonged to Elvis and to Chuck Berry, and you're like, oh, okay. And then and you see songs that he created back in the '60s that are being played today, and you're like, gosh, okay. So he is telling the truth, even if you think, well, maybe he forgot something or got some things mixed up or whatever, fine. But the central core of what he's saying about Kennedy and 9/11 and Jimmy Hoffa, by the way, because his own in-laws killed Jimmy Hoffa on his property. So he knows right there on 26 Mile Road in Michigan where he's buried. And he had just joined the Teamsters that day that he was murdered. Okay. And he knows because I'm not supposed to say that. Is it myself? There's things I'm not supposed to say. And there's some things that if I say, I could get in a lot of trouble. So I have to keep some things sealed. So there's some pretty powerful forces around these people, and I understand that. So how do I get to know this stuff? It's because I listened, and I hope I'm able to interpret the way that he speaks so that other people can understand it easier. But this kind of information has to reach critical mass. That means that's the point. I'm sorry, not everybody's a nerd like me. Critical mass is when you get enough fissionable material together, like uranium in a nuclear bomb, and when it reaches critical mass, then you can't stop it from exploding. And that's what needs to happen with his information. America needs to know what happened to its president. It needs to know what happened to the Kennedys. To all 5 of the Kennedys, who were all ritualistically murdered by the numbers. Speaking of murder by numbers, I am going to read for you the lyrics right now of Murder by Numbers by The Police. Why are they called The Police? Can you connect the dots? Well, they're called The Police because the police use this code. No, not all policemen. Probably the majority of policemen are bad. I mean, good, but they're the ones that are bad are the ones that use this system. This system that came from Jewish Kabbalah back in the Middle Ages, back in the 1200s, when the Templars went to Jerusalem. They brought this information of Jewish Kabbalah back, and through the Masonic orders, which the Templars eventually became, and his connection to the Catholic Church. That's why you have Templars and the Catholic Church that all use this information together. Then you have other Masonic orders like the Fraternal Order of Police, which is a Masonic order that use this code. So let me read for you the song Murder by Numbers. So I would play it, but it would probably give me some sort of copyright strike or something. So I'll just read it. Once that you've decided on a killing, first you make a stone of your heart. And if you find that your hands are still willing, then you can turn a murder into art. There really isn't any need for bloodshed. You just do it with a little more finesse. If you can slip a tablet into someone's coffee, then it avoids an awful lot of mess. It's murder by numbers, 1, 2, 3. It's as easy to learn as your ABCs. Get it? ABCs, because it's pairing the letters with the numbers through gematria. That's the code that they use. Now, if you have a taste for this experience and you're flushed with your very first success, then you must try a twosome or a threesome, and you'll find your conscience bothers you much less. Because murder is like anything you take to. It's a habit-forming need for more and more. You can bump off every member of your family and anybody else you find a bore because it's murder by numbers, 1, 2, 3. It's as easy to learn as your ABCs. Now, you can join the ranks of the illustrious in history's great dark hall of fame. All our greatest killers were industrious. At least the ones we all know by name. Think about that. Most of the people you know by name are killers by this code. Virtually every celebrity. But you can reach the top of your profession if you become the leader of the land. For murder is the sport of the elected, and you don't need to lift a finger of your hand. And that's why Joe Biden sends coded messages directly to Hugh Squires about how he's going to kill him, because he's been outing Joe Biden as a bisexual. The bi in Biden is no accident. Because it's murder by numbers, 1, 2, 3, and it's easy to learn as your ABCs, etc., etc. So what happens is the Queen of England and these fraternal orders are so devoted to their cause and their hatred of America. They're still fighting the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, and they will literally marry into families just to kill one person. So you might have a nanny that you've trusted your entire life who's literally being paid by the Queen of England. That's how this sick stuff works sometimes. And it's not just that, it's the police. They tortured and killed one of Hugh's wives in the hospital. They literally had to have paid a huge amount of money to set it up the way they did. That's why you need to go and listen to the stories and understand how it all happened. Just to get that many people to do what they did to her, dismember her and torture her, and even have the caretaker and all these people in on it. Had to have been a massive coordinated effort. So this is the kind of reality that we live in, where to get to the top of a business, to get to the top of politics, you kill a lot of people. We're all familiar with how the Clintons have killed a lot of people. That seems to be open and understood, though nothing gets done about it. Well, why does nothing get done about it? Because they're all on the same side. Because since Kennedy was assassinated, the people who run your government are all on the same side. Doesn't matter whether you elect a Republican or a Democrat. They are the same people, the same mobs, the same groups, the same gangsters that are all working together with the Queen of England, who, by the way, who is the Queen of England? Well, she's from German. She's a German descent. Look at how she married Philip, who was an SS guard, under Hitler. There is a German connection with the English people, okay? Windsor wasn't their original name. It was some German name. And they changed it to Windsor or something to sound more British or whatever. Maybe, I think maybe, you know anything about that, Earl? Aren't you originally from England? And I know you now, so you might know more about that than I do. I don't know. So check the notes if Earl knows anything about that. He'll probably tell us. But I forgot their original name. So what our reality is really like is that murder is unbelievably all around us. Saxe Coburg. Okay, thank you, Earl. Yeah, that was their German name. Okay. Saxa, like Saxons. Get it? That makes sense. Yeah, and the Saxons came from Germany. Yeah, interesting. So there you go. That's oh, hey Vince, how you doing? So the amount of murder that goes on in our country is at epic and unbelievable numbers, and it's everywhere. That's why it's not a stretch to think that Jalea Davis in our neighborhood was murdered by the numbers, and I think I proved that very easily. Or how the Ames fire. Hugh says that people have tried to hire him in the past just to go around setting fires. Well, they use this code. Well, Ames and fire are the same gematria, and so was Camden Avenue, the street that it was on. I mean, it's just it all goes together so obviously that it's unquestionably being done by the murder by these gangs. They don't just kill; they also arson. They do all that, and I'm sure it's an insurance fraud thing. Somebody's collecting a lot of money. This huge warehouse. I noticed another warehouse very similar to that in Italy was burning the other day, and I suspect it's probably very related. So once they killed Kennedy, and once they took out that side of America, the people that are related to Hugh, like like Admiral Byrd. Admiral Byrd, if you look up his heritage. Stephen Gray, wow, I haven't talked to you in a long time, buddy. It's good to see you, man. Gosh, I think we go back to like first grade or something like that, Steve. Same Stephen Gray, right? Not some guy with the same name. What was I saying? See how easily I get distracted. Good heavens. Well, yeah, when they took out the Kennedys back in the 60s, you now have all these groups running our government that are loyal to the Queen of England and the Pope and the entire Catholic Church, which are all the same entity. They're all pedophiles. The Catholic Church has been killing people and torturing and murdering kids for hundreds, if not, 1,500 years. Okay. Just for proof of that, if you want a story right here from the 1800s by a guy this was a priest, Charles Chinnicky. Okay. Oh, let's switch ways. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. You got to see this. 50 Years in the Church of Rome. Okay. This is a great book. I bought it at chicktracks.com, I think. Okay. This is a guy who was a priest in the Catholic Church, and he tells about how the Catholic Church was sent to infiltrate in America. And he says that, okay, in the book. And he ended up getting right with God, turning against the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church, of course, retaliated and went against him. And before Abraham Lincoln was president, he was a lawyer, and Abraham Lincoln was his lawyer. So it's a very interesting story. 50 Years in the Church of Rome by Charles Chinnicky. And he talks about the abuses and the nonstop abuse and drunkenness by the priests in the Catholic Church. They've been doing this for a long time. This is nothing new. They are a pedophile gang. You can listen to testimonies of people who are eyewitnesses online. They're not that hard to find, of people who have seen the Pope himself doing satanic rituals under the Vatican, murdering babies, stabbing them, and drinking their blood. Yes, that's the kind of sick, disgusting world that you live in. That is what is going on with the people that run your government now. They're a pedophile gang. That's what they are. That's the head of the FBI, Osborne. And when you think about Osborne, what do you think of? Oz. That's no accident. That's an old family in this country. That's why you had the Wizard of Oz. That's why you have Oscorp in Spider-Man. Okay, this is all connected. This is why you had Ozzy Osbourne. It was a knight of the Queen. Do you see how she's related to Osborne, who runs the sex crimes division of the FBI? So when you hear somebody like Trump, who you know understands this because he's part of the New York Mafia, okay, and part of the biker gangs who are all Masonic and run by the same, not every single member, but they're manipulated by the same forces. Okay, that's why you have all these biker gangs coming out for Trump, because they're manipulated by these Masonic groups. And you understand that this is all connected to the Queen of England and to the Catholic Church. Back also in the time of Charles Chinnicky here, okay, the Pope offered to send tens of thousands of Catholic troops into America to fight for the South. And I think I don't remember why it didn't happen, but there was a reason why it didn't end up happening. Okay, because they hate this country, what it stood for. And Hugh's side of the family are the people like Admiral Byrd and the captain of the Enterprise, not the starship, the battleship. The sides that fought against, fought in World War II and won World War II and beat the Germans there. And of course, the Germans are connected to the British now. Okay, you understand that, all right? And it's also the same families that fought in the Revolutionary War and kicked the Queen out of America. Well, what do you think? Was the king at the time, but you get the idea. Same families, they're all related. All the kings and queens of Europe are related, and they still hold that vendetta against America. They still hate our country. Okay, and the Senate and the executive branch and the House members of our leadership of our country, almost entirely, with few exceptions, are loyal to this group of people who have betrayed our country. And there's not nearly as many people left, but there are still some good people in the military and some of them in the FBI. But the CIA, think about George Bush was head of the CIA. That's the kind of group of people. You have good people and bad people, but there's a lot of bad people in very powerful places in this country. And of course, they've got their claws in step by step. It didn't all happen with the murder of Kennedy. That was a step that they took, like a big leap up. This was like their I don't know, like graduating, going from the junior high level maybe to the high school level, or from high school level to the college level. When they took Kennedy out and infiltrated our government to that extent that they own it now, they really took it all to the next level. Now you got to understand, they've been at it for a long time. That's why they were able to kill Lincoln back in the Civil War. Okay, that's why it was the Catholic Church. Charles Chinnicky tells you it was the Catholic Jesuit plot. He had conversations with Abraham Lincoln saying it was a Jesuit that was going to kill him, and he said he already knew that the Jesuits were after him and were going to kill him. This is not new information or anything. He knew back then that before that the Jesuits were after him, and if you check, all the people who killed Lincoln were Catholic Jesuits. Okay, this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody if you know history, but if you don't know, this might all be revolutionary information. But they've been getting our claws into this country a little bit at a time. That's how they sank the Titanic to murder all the people who were powerful enough to stop the creation of the Federal Reserve. And So they murdered those people and manipulated Wilson into creating the Federal Reserve, and then he later said that was the biggest mistake of his life. Okay, and that needed to be undone. What happened there? So, and those are the same families that have been against our country ever since. It's when we say words like Illuminati and stuff like that. Not really. These people aren't really the Illuminati per se. It just depends on your perspective of who you're calling the Illuminati, okay? But they are associated groups of people with common understanding and ideology, and their version of the New World Order isn't what was meant and understood by George Washington. That was a different ideology and understanding. The Illuminati itself was founded the same year, just a few months before July 4th of 1776. Very, very close in date there. The group that is actually called the Illuminati, and for the most part, they believed in God and a creator and in the rights and freedoms of man. And of course, the Pope doesn't believe that, nor does the Queen of England. And all these pedophile gangs and Jewish bankers, they don't believe in that at all. They believe that you are subservient to them. That they're the elitist, that they're great, you know. So that's not how this country was founded or meant to be. It was opposing groups. But a lot of these families are interrelated and interconnected, and so the lines are blurry. Me, as a very naive person, I try to see things in a very black and white perspective, and most of this stuff is not real clear black and white like we try to make it. Just say Illuminati bad, you know. It's not that simple, okay? Because the people that actually founded the group that is called the Illuminati at the time were not all bad people. They were, you know, decent people for the most part that had a belief in a creator and believed in the rights of man and believed in human freedom. That is not the case now. You might call people the Illuminati now, who are the Queen of England and the popes and you know, the Jewish bankers and such. And so if you ever hear me using the word Illuminati in the future, I'm not really saying it from its real I'm using it as a common vernacular and a colloquialism as we commonly understand it, but I'm not really saying it historically accurate, okay? And Hugh had to explain a lot of this to me. I didn't fully grasp all this. So you've heard me in the past using Illuminati and using black and white terms more in a less sophisticated way, okay? So it is August 10, and tomorrow is August 11 here shortly. It's interesting that the San Francisco Giants were playing. How was that other team? If somebody can tell me. I can't remember the name of the other team. Well, the pitcher's name was Menez, Menez, and he was a new pitcher. And I noticed that his gematria of his first and last name was 48. And when when it was understood that he was going to be the pitcher in that game, I don't know much about sports, so if I sound like I'm not saying it right, I apologize. But when they said that he was going to be the pitcher, they moved the game to 408. His gematria is 48, so that wasn't surprising. There is some thought by others that this, if something does happen tomorrow, it'll probably be during this baseball game. So I'm gonna try to watch that game. If anybody can tell me who the two teams are, I forgot the name of the other team, the Giants, and if you know. Anyway, so pay attention to that team. It starts at 4:08 p.m. So here, August 11 is coming up tomorrow. There's no guarantee that anything will happen. No guarantee whatsoever, okay? Just because we're seeing these clues doesn't mean that we interpreted them correctly. It could mean several events. It could mean that they're putting things to get, you know, this may be a very long number that we're seeing over and over again, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it goes with Tisha B'Av. We'll see. It could be that we're combining too many concepts, too many pieces of information together, and absolutely nothing happens, or something small happens, or it's a little different than what we think. But there does seem to be an indication that at some point, and possibly tomorrow, that there may be an attack on the Golden Gate Bridge, or an attack in Jerusalem at the Golden Gate, which is not a coincidence that the Golden Gate Bridge and the Golden Gate in Jerusalem, they're referring to the same thing. Those were intentionally named like that. We had the Silver Bridge, which represents the moon, in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, destroyed back in 1968, I think it was. And so that was the Silver Bridge, like the silver moon. Okay. And the Golden Gate Bridge, which represents the Son or God, and Jesus is supposed to walk through the Golden Gate in Jerusalem on his return, okay? And when he comes, he says there will be a big earthquake that splits the Mount of Olives. Well, there's a big indication by a lot of people. You've seen a lot of earthquakes happening near San Francisco building up, so that if something does happen tomorrow, nobody will be surprised that an earthquake happens tomorrow. But you can be sure that if it does on this particular date, that it was a man-made, man-caused earthquake. You say, well, how do they do that? Well, folks, listen, I don't know. Technology is good enough to understand. I can speculate, are they using a nuclear weapon underground? I don't know. Certain sonar from the Navy, I don't know. There's ways that it can be done. The last one, interestingly, the last really big one out there in California was directly under a Navy base. Makes you want, what? No, not Navy. It couldn't be Navy, could it? It was directly under some sort of military base, the epicenter. So that's very, very curious. Well, look at, I'm just going to go into some 11/8 to give you some more indication of why we have come to this thought that maybe August 11 or 8/11, which you could say forward or backwards, 11/8 or 8/11. Why we're thinking about this time as a possible attack date. Not to mention, of course, that is Tisha B'Av, which is the morning of the two temples. The first one that was destroyed in 586 BC, and the second one that was destroyed by the Romans in AD 70. Okay, the Jews have mourned the loss of the temple and have said that that's their bad luck day. The Las Vegas shooting was on Tisha B'Av. The 9/11 was 44 days from Tisha B'Av, and that could also happen as well in this case, 44 being the kill number. So it was synced with Tisha B'Av. And so the Jews believe it's an unlucky day. So it could be... throughout their history, it's been an unlucky day. And if you look into the history of Tisha B'Av, like all these terrible events that have happened throughout history have supposedly happened on Tisha B'Av. Some of their, like inquisitions and stuff like that. So here we go with an 11/8. There were alternating sequences of the 11 and 8 year Metonic cycle. Now that's not surprising, that the Jews do everything based on the Metonic cycle. So the Metonic cycle is 19 years, but they group it into groups of 11 and 8. So you can say that the 19 years is 11 and 11/8 or 11/8/11, depending on their different kinds of groupings. Okay, so and that's because of the Great Metonic cycle of 30 or 27 years. So I'm reading that. So if you don't understand it, don't worry about it. Just understand that the moon is related to 8/11. Jonathan Basie gave me this information. Okay, if you look at 8/11, well, if you take 81 and 818, it's 8/11 or 8118. It's 8/11 forward or backwards. Okay, so think about that. So 81 and 18. Okay, I'm going to try not to get too fast because I know I'm going to lose people with numbers. It's easy to lose people because it's hard to think fast with numbers because our minds are not privy to constantly calculating numbers. But you don't have to calculate it, just listen, okay? Just try to understand, okay? Well, 81 and 18 is 8/11 forward and backward. If you add 18 through 81, 18 plus 19 plus 20, and you keep doing that all the way till you get to 81, it equals the number for Lord Jesus Christ in Greek gematria, which we've talked about in our videos on the board many times, 3168. Now, in the power outage, is that related? The power outage in New York. Well, it went from 5th Street to 42nd Street to 71st Street. Add 71 plus 42 plus 5. What does that equal? 118. This one I just found today while I was watching Expedition Unknown. I was watching an episode of that. They were going to the Roanoke colony. Well, in the Roanoke colony, the lost colony of Roanoke, there were 118 people who were lost at the lost colony of Roanoke. The first colony in America, 118. Think about how, if anything big does happen tomorrow on 8/11, how that would be significantly related. I was watching a commercial one time, and I took a snapshot of a commercial that said the new 0811 Generation 2 golf club drivers. So I thought that was interesting. 811. And I took a snippet of Peter Parker's passport. And on the show Venom is shown destroying the Golden Gate Bridge. Well, Peter Parker was born on his passport on August 10. And of course, Tisha B'Av, 2 temples, it represents 2 days, August 10 and 11, which kind of reminds you how the 118 days before this August 11 was the Ides of March, the day of the Notre Dame burning and the fire on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Okay, so 2 temples, 2 fires, 118 days before 8/11. The words 22 divided by 7, if you type them out on gematrianator.com, it equals 118 and also pi. And 22 divided by 7 is pi. So that's interesting in and of itself, but I'll try to stick with 118 here for today. Prime Minister of Israel in gematria is 118. Just like Saturn's cube, like appointed unto a man once to die, like cancer, like death. A few words in gematria that are related there. Let's see. Oh, that's okay. From 8/11 to the anniversary of Ronald Reagan's assassination. I didn't title this one, so I think that's what happened on 3/30/81. It was 134 days, 38 years like murder, and 134 days like Tisha B'Av equals 134. And let's see, West Coast equals 118. Screaming and yelling, Ku Klux Klan, zombie attack, tyrants, deceiver, all are 8/11s. Oh boy, that's so technical. I'm going to lose you on that one. I just don't even get into that one. Here was a phrase. I can't remember what episode, what news article this came from, but there was, I think it was a Muslim saying this: answer the call, go and answer the call, don't spare none, kill them all. It is now time to rise, slit their throats, watch them die, which equals 1180. And of course, if you think of it strictly by the rules of gematria, 9/11 and 8/11 are only one apart, and the rule of Kalel says that one apart means the same thing. So, 9/11 or 8/11 is the same value, same idea in gematria. Al Qaeda was founded on August 11, 1988. Alcatraz, which is in the right there by the Golden Gate Bridge, just out in the bay, it equals 134, like Tisha B'Av. Ant-Man is a picture standing in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. Here's a video game, one of the war games. I don't know which one it is. I can't remember. I'm not a big gamer. I've seen it, but I can't think of it. It's one of the shooter games, 101, and the Golden Gate Bridge is blown up right in the middle, like so many of these ones. An asteroid bigger than the Empire State Building is passing by Earth on August 10. So that was today. And I collected that probably a month ago. There's another article about the same thing. And to keep in mind, August 11 is the 223rd day of the year, which is the number of skull and bones. I've verified that even around here. Of course, you see 223 in a whole lot of movies and commercials, even that Cologuard commercial where the little box talks to you or whatever. On the commercial, he comes out of a room and it's 23, 20 or it's 223, and Skull and Bones is 223, and it's all over movies. And I've got a bunch of clips of 223s from movies and commercials and stuff. So the day of the year, August 11, is the 223rd day of the year, a good Skull and Bones ritual date. Let's see, Avengers Endgame. Here, I'm looking at the picture here where there's a bunch of memorials and tombstones. I think they're memorials with a whole bunch of names. So it would be like basically representing tens of thousands of people who died near, and it's right in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. And that's from the movie Avengers Endgame. Think about that, Endgame. Like the movie Pacific Rim, which came out where in the movie where they actually destroy the Golden Gate Bridge on August 11 in the movie. I did verify that, by the way. If you see one of my old ones where I never verified it, I did go back and verify it. It really did, in the movie, get destroyed on August 11. Well, that movie was released at the View West End Theatre in London before it was released here. So think about that, View West End. Why do we need to view the West End? What could that possibly be about? On a movie where they destroy the Golden Gate Bridge on August 11. The Phillies will be in San Francisco playing the Giants. There we go. That was the other team I was looking for. So the Phillies will be in San Francisco playing the Giants, and the time got changed to 4:08, which matches the gematria 48 of the pitcher Menez, M-E-N-E-Z, I think. Now think about this. I'm looking at the picture of Big Hero 6, which was a cartoon. Big Hero 6 combines the cities of San Francisco and Tokyo, both of which are known for earthquakes, by the way. And right in this picture, it shows the Golden Gate Bridge on Big Hero 6. Okay, it's a popular theme in background part of this cartoon. Think about combining Tokyo and San Francisco. Flight 811, after it left San Francisco, crashed into Mount Fuji. Think about that. There's some movie called Bushwick, and I just clipped it yesterday. I haven't seen the movie. I don't know what it's about, but he's staring at the Golden Gate Bridge. No, that ain't the Golden Gate Bridge. I made a mistake. That's the bridge in New York, so I don't know what that's about. Brooklyn Bridge. This is interesting. I don't think it means anything, but it might. I don't know. In West Virginia, if you want to dig, to make sure you don't dig into a water line, you're supposed to call 811 to have them come verify where you're digging. Thought that was interesting. Some of these movies, I do not know what they were, but here's a movie with the destruction of the Golden Gate Bridge. I know you don't see it. Cancer and gematria is 118. I think I already told you that. Los Angeles, California is 118 degrees west. Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry was the movie there where he's standing at the Golden Gate Bridge. This movie, one where they go back in time in the phone booth. There it shows the destruction of the Golden Gate Bridge. Is that British show? I can't think of the name of it. I never watched it. Okay, there's a 70% chance of an earthquake in a magnitude of 6.7% in San Francisco before 2030. One report says. So that's something to watch out for, that it could be an earthquake. They're setting us up for possibly a man-made earthquake. Oh, there's a Final Destination, shows the scene of the destruction of the Golden Gate Bridge. They called it a different color in the movie, but it's clearly the Golden Gate Bridge. There's, I'm looking now at another movie with a picture of a tsunami coming. And that's one of the things, if they create an artificial earthquake, it could possibly create a tsunami that might be partly responsible for destroying the bridge, or entirely responsible. Funeral home equals 118 in gematria. Oh, wait, what was that? Oh, yeah, George Bush's funeral. I think that's what that is. 11/30/18. George Herbert Walker Bush's funeral to today, 8 months and 11 days. Huh. Hulk Hogan was born on August 11. And Hulk Hogan is related to Hugh's story, by the way. He used to be a bouncer, even though he denies it now, at Cavey Bar in Michigan, where Hugh used to play. Here's an article that calls San Francisco Ground Zero. Let me read this to you. Since it opened on this day in 1937, the Golden Gate Bridge has become perhaps the defining symbol of San Francisco. It's a city famous for reinvention, one that rebuilt itself after the devastating earthquake and fires of 1906, later becoming ground zero for hippie culture. Think about the word ground zero in 9/11. And let's see, that movie I'm looking at the moment, that one is, I know you can't see it, I understand. But this movie is Godzilla. He destroyed the Golden Gate Bridge too. You almost can't tell the footage different from Pacific Rim, where the big monsters called kaiju go and destroy the bridge. And of course, you guys have heard me say a million times about how Bumblebee is related to the Golden Gate Bridge, and their last scene is them driving across the Golden Gate Bridge, and one of the Decepticons, Decepticons was 223 or 227 on his shirt, and not his shirt, but on his chest. He's a robot, and his the height of the Golden Gate Bridge is 227. Of course, 22 divided by 7 is pi. Like, you'll see this again. It's not a mistake, not a coincidence, I don't believe. Homicide equals 118. Think about the monsters in Pacific Rim. They're called kaiju. Kaijus destroy the bridge. Isn't that interesting? Who runs our country? And August 11, tomorrow, is the day that Jupiter comes out of retrograde and starts going forward. I can't think of a better metaphor for moving a titanic agenda forward than doing it on a day where Jupiter comes out of retrograde. And these people are connected to astrology in unbelievable ways. This kind of stuff is very important to them. Also, the Perseid meteor shower is at peak on August 12. It comes every year. I try to go out and look for it, but I rarely see one. And of course, in Star Trek, where does the beginning of the Federation happen? In San Francisco, right by the Golden Gate Bridge. Trekkie fans, go out and watch Star Trek, and you'll see that the Federation begins in San Francisco, right in front of the bridge. And it's interesting that the fire truck called Ladder 118, which is the last picture of it, is on a bridge going towards the World Trade Centers on 9/11. Ladder 118 was killed and all the firemen in it. And its last picture is of it on a bridge. Here's an interesting Lego puzzle piece that I'm looking at here, where you can build the Golden Gate Bridge, and guess how many pieces it has? 118. Do you see why if nothing happens tomorrow, what the heck do all these clues mean? I don't know. Why do they keep putting 811 and 118 in the Golden Gate Bridge together? I mean, that's a Dutch company, for heaven's sakes. How is all this connected? How do they know all this? Here's a movie called Life After People that I'm looking at, where they destroy the Golden Gate Bridge. That's like a, I don't know, documentary. I think that might have been on either Discovery or maybe National Geographic Channel or something. I'm not sure. The Lion's Gate, which is I don't even understand this very good because I'm not great with astrology and that sort of stuff. But Lion's Gate opens every year on August 8th through the 12th when the sun is in Leo, the constellation Leo, and is marked by the star Sirius moving closer to Earth and aligning in Orion's belt, which perfectly syncs up with the pyramids in Giza. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty important because Leo the lion, like the lion of the tribe of Judah, and by the way, the group Lion of Judah's Lion, I think it's called Judah's Lion, is playing in San Francisco tomorrow. While the sun is in Leo the lion of the tribe of Judah, and the Golden Gate Bridge, where Jesus goes through the Golden Gate in Jerusalem. Wow, that's an awful lot of connections. Look at the picture sometime of London Breed. It kind of sounds like London Bridge. London Nicole Breed, born August 11, 1974. The mayor of San Francisco was born on August 11. And when you find this picture of her that I'm looking at, she's wearing the same collar shirt as the collar of the Golden Gate Bridge. Magneto destroyed the Golden Gate Bridge by using his magnetic powers and picking it up on X-Men and using it as a bridge somewhere else. He took it, used his magnetic powers and took the whole bridge somewhere and used it as a bridge somewhere else. Here's a horoscope for August 2019. You're feeling shifts at home and in your personal life. And on August 11, as Jupiter ends its retrograde and Mercury enters Leo on August 11, boosting your intuition. Listen, I don't believe in astrology, okay? I don't believe in horoscopes, but, they definitely already had one up. So, what's your intuition tell you about tomorrow? I don't know. Will anything happen? I can't tell you it will. All I can say is, what do all these clues mean? All I can say is it's not illogical to assume that something could happen tomorrow. With this many clues, it's not illogical. We're just saying, well, maybe something small happens and it's related to something bigger, a bigger agenda. We'll see. Maybe nothing happens at all and we're just really confused. I don't know. But you can see how we could come to this conclusion reading this much information about one day. So, we're not just completely stupid. If nothing happens tomorrow, we have a whole lot of reason to think it might, to have thought so that it might. As the sign of balance, you tend to give away power and your determination to equal the scales, especially in romantic partnerships. Here's that horoscope again. On Sunday, August 11, the communication planet Mercury enters into Leo. Okay. Mercury is like Hermes and communication. Okay, so that's the same god, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So the messenger god is sending a message in Leo. That's an interesting thought. Now that's actual, yes, it's a horoscope, but they're telling a real astronomical event that Mercury enters into the constellation Leo. This is very interesting that NASA sent out a picture and said a gigantic rock twice as big as San Francisco's flagship Golden Gate Bridge, which is 227 meters high and above the water. And there's a picture of a meteor called 2017 VR12, where they thought, so they were comparing it to the Golden Gate Bridge and a possible strike on the Earth. Well, isn't that weird? Why would they compare it to the Golden Gate Bridge, say it's the same height, and put a picture of a meteor colliding right next to the Golden Gate Bridge? I wonder why NASA would do that. Isn't that weird? Even another video game. What is that video game called? Minecraft. Minecraft has the Golden Gate Bridge in it. I think you can destroy it in there. And there's a monster movie where they destroy the Golden Gate Bridge. I wish I could remember the names. They're old black and white of an octopus destroying the Golden Gate Bridge back in the 50s. I mean, for heaven's sakes, how many times they got to destroy the Golden Gate Bridge? Now, I recently watched on Netflix The Book of Eli, and you should watch this because The Book of Eli, the main character, and this is a spoiler alert, guys. I'm just going to tell you, okay? The guy memorizes the entire Bible and starts society over after, world cataclysm at Alcatraz, which we already said earlier equals 118 in gematria. And well, he writes the Bible from memory and creates the only remaining copy of the Bible. The last one, he read it in Braille and memorized it. And then it was a great movie, but you got to wonder, is it connected to tomorrow's possible events? I don't know. Or is all this stuff just a metaphor? I'm actually looking here at the picture of how on Pacific Rim, I took a screenshot, August 11, 2013, is when they destroyed the bridge on that movie. So 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 6 years ago on the movie. And it says, by the way, at 9:32 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So, was that the original time of that ball game before they moved it to 4:08, I wonder? I don't know. That would be weird if it was, wouldn't it? HAARP, HAARP, the big facility that is blamed for, what do they say it's doing? They say it's, what do they say you use HAARP for? I forgot. To create weather and stuff. That's the conspiracy theory on it. Well, it was patented, hardly say that word, on August 11, 1987. Isn't that weird? Pua Magasiva, the Power Ranger, died at 38 years old. Like we said, murder by numbers. Yeah, murder by numbers. The poster replaced 2 of the letters with a 38 because murder equals 38 in gematria. And then we found that Pua Magasiva died at 38 years old on, guess when? August 10. No, he was born on August 10. He didn't die on August 10. He was born on August 10. Prime Minister of Israel equals 118. Already said that. If you put the sun and the moon gods in Egypt, Ra and La together in gematria, that equals 118. Revelations 18:11, 1811. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. Planet of the Apes, they rampage over the Golden Gate Bridge, like I said, and destroyed in that one. Robin Williams, born August 11. It's the Robin Williams Tunnel that is a road that goes straight up to the Golden Gate Bridge. Lived in San Francisco, credited for leading the San Francisco comedy renaissance. Born on August 11. Clearly a sacrificial ritual was done to him. It was on some magazines in August in 2014, by the way. The Russian submarine Murmansk sank on August 12, killing all 118 crew members. Ritual much? They even got the Russians in on it. The Russians are our allies, not our enemies, by the way. However, they're not the allies of the Germans, are they? Interesting. Connect the dots, folks. Can you connect the dots? Sonic the Hedgehog, the picture of Sonic the Hedgehog, which opens on 11/8, the reverse of August 11, 11/8, shows Sonic the Hedgehog standing on the Golden Gate Bridge. What? This was You know, we have a Golden Gate Bridge on the western side of the country, and I already talked about how the bridge in Point Pleasant was destroyed, the Silver Bridge. But it also talks about the Golden Door, at the Statue of Liberty on its plaque. And I don't think that's coincidence. That's, there's the eastern side of the country and the western coast of the country, the Golden Door and the Golden Bridge, the Golden Gate. Superman rescued people on the Golden Gate Bridge, the Christopher Reeve Superman, if you go back and look at that. And of course, we talked a little bit about the New Zealand shooting at the mosque and how I didn't tell you, but if you've watched Zach's channel, he's talked about it plenty of times, how the zip code where the Al Masjid, am I saying that right? However you say that, name that mosque down there in New Zealand. Well, the zip code was 8011, 811 again. And then the synagogue was attacked in Pittsburgh, and guess how much their goal was to raise money for? $118,000 they wanted to raise for sympathy for the victims of the Pittsburgh shooting. No, this is the San Diego synagogue shooting. There's one in Pittsburgh and one in San Diego. And they wanted to raise $118,000. Tartarus, that equals 118 in gematria. There's some of these movies I just don't even have a clue what they are, so there's a whole lot of movies that have the Golden Gate Bridge being destroyed in it. Here's a magazine where it shows you a license plate. It's called Thrasher Magazine, and a license plate says 8011. And of course, he's in San Francisco. In the next page, it's on he's riding a skateboard by the Golden Gate Bridge. Seems like there's an awful lot of people into this. Isn't it interesting that Tom Brady equals 118, like Patriots equals 118? Tom Brady's really important in the sports this year, I guess. I don't follow sports, so I don't know. And isn't it interesting that who else equals 118? Who's the golfer? Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods equals 118 as well, and he was the champion this year. After a long streak of not being the champion, and then just this year, where we're looking at August 11, Mr. 118 makes a comeback. Isn't that weird? Ant-Man accidentally in a comic book destroyed the Golden Gate Bridge. I got a picture of that. West Coast equals 118. And that's the end of my pictures. So I know you can't see them, but you can see just from listening to me that there's a whole lot of reasons why we're suspecting something could happen. Doesn't mean it will. All this evidence doesn't prove that it will. Okay? But if anything at all happens tomorrow, whether it be in San Francisco or in the actual Golden Gate in Jerusalem or on the Temple Mount, maybe in Pittsburgh possibly, whatever happens, or if nothing happens, didn't hurt you to listen, to try to help us figure out the riddle. It might be 44 days from Tisha B'Av, like 9/11 was, or something, it'll be synced up with it in some possible other way. Okay? If it doesn't happen, get you some food and water tomorrow morning before anything has a chance of happening, just in case there's that 3-day blackout like they talked about during Passover this year. There's 3 days of darkness that they prophesied, and it was definitely synced up with Tisha B'Av as well, but I don't have that paper in front of me. So it's always a possibility. Remember on the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, the trailer, there is a blackout that starts on the West Coast and goes from west to east. And of course, the poster for it was Sonic the Hedgehog standing on the Golden Gate Bridge. It comes out 11/8, and the trailer shows a blackout happening from West Coast to East Coast. 3 days of darkness that was prophesied to happen this year on Passover by the Catholic Church. Well, it obviously didn't happen on Passover, but it is synced with Tisha B'Av. I wonder if that could mean anything. So think about that as well. Well, I'm already an hour and a half into this, and I got to go to work here in a little bit, so I'm going to have to cut it off here. Thanks for watching. If you're watching on Bow and Arrow on YouTube, which I will get it uploaded eventually, it'll be too late because I don't have time to do it tonight, but it'll be after Tisha B'Av. So please spread this around Facebook. It's not going to make it to YouTube tonight. Although if anybody else wants to screenshot it or whatever and post it to YouTube on their channel, you're more than welcome to. And please spread this information. And if something does happen, know that this was planned well in advance, or you wouldn't have all this information. So thanks for watching. I'll stop here.